Hey listeners, it's Saturday, September 13th, 2025, and today we're doing something a little different. This is a special in-depth episode, focusing on one heavy, consequential story unfolding right now in London and across the country. We're unpacking what happened today when a massive anti-migrant protest, led by figures like Tommy Robinson, drew up to 150,000 people into central London. It wasn't just a march, it became a tense clash with police, with reports of injuries, arrests, and violent moments that shook the city. We'll walk through the timeline, the motives, the policy backdrop, and what this could mean for Parliament, for asylum policy, and for ordinary people caught in the crossfire of public debate. I want to take the time to lay out the facts, the context, and the potential paths forward, so this episode is more than sound bites and headlines. It's a close look at a moment that tests how the UK handles migration, security, and a national conversation that's loudly contested right now. So let's get into what happened, who's involved, and why this matters for all of us paying attention to immigration policy and its human impact. On September 13, 2025, in central London, police and protesters clashed across multiple sites as a large anti-migrant rally under the banner "Unite the Kingdom" drew massive crowds. The event, foregrounded by concerns about asylum policy, work visa rules, and housing for asylum seekers, was reported to attract up to 150,000 participants, marking it as one of the largest demonstrations in recent memory. The scale alone jammed streets and made demonstrations hard to contain. Scotland Yard reported injuries among officers, 26 injuries at one point, and noted 25 arrests for offenses ranging from assault to public disorder. The confrontation wasn't just a spark in a single moment. It reflected a broader strain in the country's migration debate and a perceived slow evolution away from hotel-based accommodation for asylum seekers toward other housing and visa pathways. As lines formed and tensions mounted, there were attempts by some groups to reach hotels housing asylum seekers, with flares and projectiles reported. The scene included baton charges and cordons intended to hold lines and prevent escalation. But the events underscored how quickly a policy dispute can translate into street-level conflict. On the other side, there was a smaller counter-demonstration organized by Stand Up to Racism, joined by several MPs, drawing around 5,000 people who expressed support for asylum seekers and opposition to rising hostility. The day's atmosphere was charged by online misinformation that amplified fears and amplified the sense of crisis among protesters. To understand why this happened, we need to look at the policy backdrop. The UK's migration system has been through a lot of changes over recent years. Efforts to restore control, shifts in work visa rules, and debates over hotel accommodations versus alternative housing. The movement today is connected to a broader climate about how the country manages borders, staffing for essential industries, and the social safety net for people who come seeking asylum or new opportunities. There's real human impact here. Families in hotels, workers navigating visa requirements, and communities trying to balance openness with security and resources. It's not just rhetoric. It's about real livelihoods and real civic space for debate. Looking ahead, what happens next matters for policymakers and for people on the ground. If this tension persists, we could see further pressure on hotels, housing availability, and local services, along with louder calls for policy reform or even more restrictive measures. If policymakers listen and respond with clear communication, transparent criteria, and humane handling of asylum cases, there's a path to reduce flashpoints. The risk is continued polarization, misinformation feeding fear, and a legitimacy crisis for both sides of the debate if voters feel their voices aren't heard or their safety isn't guaranteed. This moment asks, how do we balance national security, economic needs, and moral responsibilities toward people who seek safety and opportunity here? For listeners who want a deeper read on the policy shifts at stake, the context includes reforms tied to restoring control over the immigration system, changes in work and family visa applications, and the evolving landscape of visa costs and requirements that shape who comes, why they come, and how long they stay. The human cost often sits behind the numbers and the headlines, from hotel housing to the workplaces that rely on immigrant labor, and from schools to neighborhood services adjusting to new arrivals. Understanding these connections helps us navigate not just today's protests, but the long arc of how a country negotiates its identity and responsibilities in a connected world. What does this mean for audiences? If you care about how a nation manages its borders, how communities are affected by migration policy, and how misinformation can fuel real-world violence, this episode is for you. We'll continue to follow updates, speak to experts who can explain the policy mechanics behind the headlines, and shine a light on the voices of those most affected by these decisions. We'll also connect you with reliable resources and explain how policy changes could reshape the visas, housing, and services that people rely on. Before we sign off, a quick reminder. For ongoing coverage and deeper analysis, visit visaverge.com, where we track policy shifts, case studies, and practical implications for individuals and businesses navigating the immigration system. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more thoughtful, long-form coverage on this story as it develops.